like to call to order the Dearborn Public Schools Board of Education special meeting of June 11th, 2015. Can we get a roll call?
Marion Betty.
Here.
Joseph Guido.
Here.
Mary Lane. Here. Roxanne McDonald.
Here.
Michael Mead.
Here.
Mary Petchlikoff.
Here.
President Shiawassee.
Here. Next item.
Citizen participation. Those citizens who wish to address may speak at this time. We do not have any cards right now. So the next item then is discussion superintendent interviews. Michigan Leadership Institute, Dr. John VanWagoner. Associate
Perfect timing.
Superintendent, General Education, Shiawassee, RESD.
I'm Mike. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. I'm Mary. I'm Roxanne. Nice to meet you.
Amy.
Nice to meet you.
Dawn.
Don, nice to meet you.
Mary, nice to meet you.
Miriam.
Miriam, nice to meet you.
Joe.
Joe, nice to
Glad to
meet
meet you, John.
Everybody that came, thank you. Appreciate the opportunity to present, and thank the school year's winding down and taking the time to. Thank you.
So on behalf of the Dearborn Board of Education, I would like to welcome Dr. John VanWagoner to the interview for the position of superintendent. Dr. VanWagoner currently holds a position of Associate Superintendent for the Shiawassee Intermediate School District in Shiawassee County Services. I want to take a moment to describe our format for this evening for you and for the audience. First, we'll introduce the board members, which we've done. The interview will take up to 90 minutes. Questions can be submitted by the audience if time allows. There are these green papers over on the table there. There will be approximately 25 to 30 questions presented by the board. Towards the end of the interview, we'll give the candidate an opportunity to ask any questions of us. We'll provide an opportunity for the candidate to make a closing statement. And Dr. Wilmon, our search consultant, will keep us aware of the time. Audience feedback and questions from our audience may be submitted on the green forms located at the to my right. The board will consider these comments and questions if the form has been signed, the questions are not duplicates or illegal, and if time permits. The task of choosing our next superintendent is the responsibility of the Board of Education as representatives of the community. However, we appreciate and seek input from our staff and community. While we are not seeking recommendations as to which individuals should be hired, we are seeking your input as to the strengths and/or concerns about each of the candidates. They are printed on the bottom of the form. Please keep in mind our issues we may not use as a basis for our hiring decisions. They are printed on the bottom of the form. Dr. Wilmot will collect these forms as we begin the last section of the questions from the board, which is staff and personnel. So, my opening question. While we've had an opportunity to review your resume, our audience has not. Would you briefly review your background and tell us what causes you to be interested in the position at this point in your career?
Okay, so first of all, again, thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. It's been a great experience for me to be able to explore this position, and I've been down to Dearborn quite a few times, driving around, looking around, going to school buildings, walked through some tonight, and just go through neighborhoods and talk to people. So it's been an outstanding opportunity, and just real thankful to be able to be here tonight. For the crowd, again, thank you for coming, and I know there's a lot of parents and students that I met with and staff that have spent the time, and it's much appreciated. My name is Dr. John VanWagoner, and I am currently the Associate Superintendent for General Education with the Shiawassee Regional Education Service District. We're very similar to Wayne-Risa in that aspect, yet quite a bit smaller than in Wayne County, but we're middle size as far as intermediate school districts in the state. Started my career actually, and very proud as a teacher. I spent 10 years in the classroom. Started my career at Lapeer Community Schools. At the time in Lapeer, we had about between 8,000 and 9,000 students in Lapeer. We had 2 Class A high schools, 2 middle schools, 11 elementary schools, and had a great time there. Started out my days when I started. I taught elementary physical education and ended my day with senior government. So I had the opportunity for the full spectrum of that K-12 world and enjoyed it a ton. Had the opportunity while I was there to do a role as a split administrator and teacher. So I was a quasi administrator working as dean of students and supervisor of athletics while I also taught civics and physical education there at Lapeer West High School. From there, I had the opportunity to go over to the west side of the state, actually, and taught at St. Joseph High School. St. Joe High School is right on Lake Michigan, southwest Michigan corner, St. Joe Benton Harbor area. It's the world headquarters of Whirlpool, a Fortune 500 company. So I understand the atmosphere of a large, corporation within the school district. So I had 7 years there that were fabulous. Loved it. Just learned a ton and made great relationships while I was there with students and staff, and had a great time. And from that, at the point, I really wasn't looking to leave, but part of my PhD program at Western Michigan University was the opportunity to do an internship. And I was fortunate enough, called and emailed and asked the state superintendent if he might be willing to let me, come and do some internship time for a little while in the summer. And I got an email back, said, come and meet with the staff. And so I did, and ended up that actually led that summer to a job. I actually took a job in the Office of Education Improvement and Innovation as an instructional specialist, worked closely and deep on curriculum and instruction in that role. I also worked a lot and was the state lead as for the dual enrollment and early college program for the Michigan Department of Education while I was there. Took a job advancement in that department as the manager of curriculum and instruction for the Michigan Department of Education. Did a lot with the Michigan Merit Curriculum, a lot of the standards and crosswalks from the old standards to the new standards as the Common Core was starting to begin at that point. It was still very early in that infancy. Did a lot with the expansion and flexibility with personal curriculums. There was some real confusion, and I was tasked with trying to really explain to the community that is a more of a viable option than just the 1% that really was set at one time by the department. Really had some great experience there with that. I had the opportunity to go and work as the Assistant Director of Professional Preparation at MDE, in charge of all certification for teacher and administrators in the state of Michigan. Handled all HR operations and budget operations for that office. It's one of 11 offices within the Michigan Department of Education. And from there, had the opportunity to go, and I was named the legislative liaison directly to the state superintendent. So I worked very closely to help to advocate the state superintendent and the State Board of Education's legislative plan, and worked closely with legislators, governor's staff, and both Governor Granholm and Governor Snyder's administration. So I had a real opportunity to make relationships with legislative staff and education lobbyists, and just had a real good time with that. But that being said, I still missed being around kids. It was the hard part, and a lot of people have asked me, why I left the department. I loved every minute that I was at MDE. However, all these things that I saw going on, a lot of cool things in districts with early college programs and Project Lead the Way and those kind of things that I had the chance to experience, I wanted to go and help some school districts to be able to implement those things. So very close to, Lansing area, Shiawassee RSD, the assistant superintendent's job opened up there. And they really had some real need, and so it was an opportunity for me to get a little bit closer to kids and be able to work with teachers and be able to get a little bit back in that atmosphere where I was in schools and the community a lot more. So that's led me over the last 3 years. We've had great success. We've done great things there. We've created 8 early college high schools. All of the high schools in our county, our early college programs, were the only one in the state that has done that. We've implemented project-based learning in quite a few of our schools. So just really enjoyed my time there, and just really am excited, though, to take that next step and to be able to come to a district that is a fabulous district and celebrate the successes you've had and those things, but really to try and even take it to that next step, and I believe can be the best district, not only in the state, but I think can be a district that can lead the nation in a lot of the innovative programs for students. So that's pretty well my background.
Excellent. Given what you know about our school district, could you tell us what you believe are the most immediate challenges that we face?
Yeah, so, first of all, to say that from the research that I've done, staff has done an amazing job over the last few years in this district, from, in the downturn and of just the financial issues with the 20J cut that just instantly happened to the district, and what, the entire school community, the board, the unions, the all of the parents and students have done to come back from those budget issues and make that happen has been great. But I think that the most important challenge that we're facing here in this district is increasing student achievement for all students, especially students in poverty. It is the one thing. Dearborn has 70% of your students are economically disadvantaged. And so being able to make sure that we have the resources and be able to have all the necessary tools to be able to teach and make sure those kids, all of them, achieve and have those opportunities, I think is really that biggest challenge. But I think that you can rise to that challenge, and I would love the opportunity to help do that. And again, I can be that beacon of light for school districts across the state to be able to say, with poor kids, we can still give them those opportunities to succeed and achieve. It's our mission. It's what we're about. Some people say it's impossible. I believe that's our job, is the impossible. And so I think that, that's key. I think as well, some of those things is at the same time keeping the morale of teachers, who quite frankly I think are heroic and do amazing things with students every day, with those challenges and with the hard, limited resources that we have. I think it's important that we celebrate the successes we've had. The district has done great things of taking schools from the priority list off. You have no schools on the priority list. But yet at the same point, you still do have, I think it's 6 schools that are focus schools and 13 schools that are in the bottom 30%. So I think taking that challenge, working with the people that have done heroic work already in doing that, I believe that's the biggest challenge that Dearborn faces.
What specific capabilities and/or qualities would you bring to this position that would set you apart from other candidates?
I think one key thing is that I'm a strong relationship builder. I really try and get to know people in the community, working, and I'm very visible in that aspect. And I think, doing that, one of the things that people would learn about me is that I am truly an advocate for all children. I'm an advocate for every student, no matter what their socioeconomics are, students with disabilities, students that are gifted students, whatever that is. I believe that we have the obligation to make sure that all children achieve and learn. I think a major strength that I have is my direct involvement in K-14 education practice and policy at the local, intermediate, and state level. I've worked as a teacher for 10 years. I've been a building administrator. I have worked at the state level. I've worked at the highest levels of state government and education, and I've worked at the ISD level and understand the resources and the things that they have that can help Dearborn help their students to achieve. I think that at my time at MD, I have direct experience of working with priority and focus schools. Again, you have 6 focus schools in this district, and that is that gap of the lowest 30 to the top 30%. I have direct work while I was at MD of working with schools that were in that situation in ways in which we've tried to help them to be able to, again, increase student achievement and give all students the opportunity to learn. I would also say that for the last 3 years that I've been able to lead a vision that is very similar to what Dearborn's done with the early college program and what's been done with the Collegiate Academy. The idea that every student in Shiawassee County has the opportunity to earn a college degree at one of 3 institutions. We have partnerships with Central Michigan University, Lansing Community College, and Baker College of Owasso. I've been able to take, again, all of that from the inception of working with our community, having the conversation around our data, and we've been able to build that, and this is next year will be our first year of our first class of 13th year students that will have that opportunity. And that includes all of our career and technical education programs. Every single countywide CTE program is a part of our 5-year program. I have direct experience in leading that and having the vision for it and implementing that. And then also, a lot of work's been done here of working on project-based learning. I've done a lot directly with infusing project-based learning. I was awarded a $1.2 million grant on behalf of Shiawassee RSD that we wrote to be able to build project-based learning across our region. We've done a lot with the other ISDs and within the greater capital region. And so knowing that Dearborn has taken on with the Dearborn Center for Science, Math, and Technology, and being able to take some of that and that project-based learning even to some of the other buildings, K-12, elementary, middle school, and high school, we're building that I think that, that's some of the aspects that really separates me as a candidate for this position.
We're going to take turns asking questions. So, Ms. Bazzi?
Hello. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about community relations. How specifically have you engaged diverse populations in your current or previous positions, and how would you go about engaging all segments of our community if you were selected as our next superintendent?
Could you repeat that one more time, please?
Yes. How specifically have you engaged diverse populations in your current or previous positions, and how would you go about engaging all segments of our community if you were selected as our next superintendent?
Okay, so in my current position, we've done a lot. We are, the area that I'm at, we are not the most diverse area as far as students that have come from different backgrounds of race and religion and ethnicity and those aspects. We do have a large amount of students that are poor. So one of the things that we've tried to do is we've partnered a lot with Michigan State University. And so we are actually having our students, they do a lot of activities right now. We're doing things with the Confucius Institute. So we're trying to build our foreign language programs. And so we are starting to have Mandarin Chinese programs throughout our school districts, as well as we actually are having many of our students that are taking opportunities to go to Michigan State University and take dual enrollment classes as well. We've tried to partner, and so with that, to be able to build some of those type of diversity type things for our students. My time at the Michigan Department of Education, I worked a lot with diversity. One of my original role as an instructional specialist, one of the things I worked on was with English language learners and working with students and working with our Title III program. And so I had the opportunity to learn about students' backgrounds and go and visit schools across the state, many that had refugee populations, and many that were trying to just work on building diverse cultures. Some of the schools, and one of the high schools in our county, we're working right now to work with the Confucius Institute. They're actually bringing 30 Chinese students into the community to live and will actually be a part of the community, and they will be full-fledged students at Byron High School. So I've helped them to work with Oxford area schools, that is a district that's led a lot of that work, and Dr. Skilling there. And so I've managed to take our districts and take them on visits and be able to see that. And that's been helpful because we've also included some of the members of our community, our service clubs, the Exchange Club, and working with, especially working with the Rotary Club, to be actually also, that's an initiative that they have. They do a lot with opportunities of working with students of different cultural backgrounds, and they do a lot of foreign exchange students. So we're trying to bolster that more in our community. So my experience of working at MDE with that has been important, and understanding the English language learners and just overall the community in which I live. I live in the greater East Lansing community, so have had the opportunity to be a part of the cultural diversity that's there. Many friends, for instance, that are members of the Islamic Center in East Lansing. Many of the folks, my family actually has had the opportunity to work in the Confucius Institute and take some of those foreign exchange classes with an entire Chinese population. My children are the only ones that are not of Chinese descent that are in that program. So, and then spreading that to people even within my own school community of those opportunities that Michigan State University has for students to learn that. And so it's been interesting, and some of those things and what we've learned and what our districts are starting to try and embrace as far as diversity.
And there is a second part to that question. I know it's kind of a two-part, so I'll read it again. How would you go about engaging all segments of our community if you were selected as our next superintendent?
So I think that one of the key things would be, first of all, would be to learn about all the different groups that are in this community. In your packet, one of the things I gave you is a 100-day plan of how I would go about trying to engage all of the different members of the community to learn what opportunities are out there, ways in which the school district can engage them, ways that we can come to them, ways that they can help our school community and our district. I think that having that idea of listening for understanding, not a listening for debate, but just to learn, is a key thing that I could go out and do right away in that first 100 days to see what that is. And then I think we could start to partner and work on initiatives for the betterment of the school district to be able to, celebrate that diversity and celebrate and work with, even the local press to be able to explain of how Dearborn is unique and how that is a great thing to celebrate and can be a model for other communities around the United States. Because I do believe, just from what I've learned already of the diversity here, I think this district's a model. And so I think, again, having the community and having those meetings with all of the representation within the community, all of the different, faith-based groups, all of the political leaders, and to be able to learn about what's already being done, but in ways and ideas in which we can embrace that and bring that more into our schools in a positive way, is something that I would work on right away off the bat if I was to be able to be nominated as the superintendent here in Dearborn.
Could you share with us ways in which you have accomplished successful communications with the community regarding your district's problems or accomplishments?
Sure. So one of the key things that when I walked in that we try to do is look at data. So we've really tried to say, from a data standpoint, what is it that we're doing well? What is it that we need to improve at? And so we went around and took that data and had a lot of dialogue with everybody within our community. I went on many presentations out to the service clubs, to all of our school districts, directly with the teaching staff in staff meetings, talking with legislative leaders, of local government, parent groups, our PTA, and talked really about that data. And one of the important things that we realized right away that really led to some of our post-secondary things is that when you looked at our data, about 60% of our kids have been going on to some type of post-secondary training, whether that be a trade school or a community college with an associate's degree, a 4-year degree. But what we realized is two things. 25% of those students were starting off in remedial coursework. 1/4 of those kids were having to take a 0-level course, and most of them in 2 or more areas. Math being our number 1, reading being our second. And so taking that and talking to our community about that issue, we also took a look at it, and we had the lowest dual enrollment numbers in the state of Michigan for a county. So what we tried to do, and one of that was the lack of having a local community college. We are not in a community college district. So we had to talk to our community and talk about ways in which we could try to partner with some public institutions to be able to raise that, and ways in which that we could try and internally in our districts build that. Because if you look at our ACT scores, for instance, in our Explore Plan ACT supported that our students were really not ready for college, yet we had a very high graduation rate. So as we started to look at that data and talk to our community, we decided to go and start the Shiawassee Post-Secondary Access Network. And this is a group, an affiliate of the Michigan College Access Network. And what this group does is we actually have 3 AmeriCorps workers that are working in our county. And they are located in our high schools. And they are working with students that are especially at-risk students that are on the edge of going to college, and talk to them about what are the things they have to do, get them signed up for early testing. In many of our community colleges, they have to take the Compass test or the AccuPlacer. We have many of our kids doing that early now as juniors. As well as our AmeriCorps workers are taking kids on college trips to different campuses. We have a group going to U of M Ann Arbor. We have 70 kids going next week. We've had a full bus go to Oakland University, Central Michigan, Saginaw Valley. We're taking kids all over to expose them to college, and our dual enrollment and early college program have been a big part of that. We went from the lowest numbers to almost over 20% of our students now are in dual enrollment in our early college program, getting that leg up so they're ready, and we know that we're going to eradicate the remediation for our students if we can get them those early interventions. So our community has rallied to create that post-secondary access network. We've run our community foundation. We've been able to put all of our scholarships across our community in one repository, one common application. Through that process that SPAN has helped coordinate. And we have representation. We meet every month with an entire cross of our community. All of our local mayor, our community and private foundations, higher ed, teachers, PTA, school administrators. We meet to talk about and look at metrics to see how we're improving in that. And so that's one way in which we've taken one of those things. And I go out all across the community and update. I go to Chamber AM at 7 a.m. with the Chamber of Commerce at Big Boy, and I get 3 minutes to give my spiel of how we're doing and where we're at with it. I go to the service clubs, I give those presentations. I go to our high schools and I have meetings at night with parents and just talk about where we're at, where we're trying to go, and what our data is telling us now compared to where we were 3 years ago. So that's, some of the things that the challenges we've had and put it out there, but we've had also updated them on the successes we've had at the same time.
What are some examples of community activities in which you have been an active participant and/or provided leadership, and in what ways did that benefit your district?
So some of the things that I've done a lot of work in general education, we've done a lot with early childhood programming and trying to make sure that every student in our county that is eligible receives a preschool education. And so we've done a lot of going out and working with our United Way, because many of our students that we know are not getting preschool education are students that are in poverty. And so we've done a lot to try and partner with that to make sure that all of our students that are eligible are getting that education. We do a lot of events with GSRP, such as Touch a Truck, where we bring school buses and we bring fire engines and we bring a lot of things together. And so I make sure that I help participate and help to coordinate that every year. And a part of that work with United Way as well, we've done a lot in our community, and through the RESD and our general ed services, we've been to help lead that. We've done a lot with looking and taking a look for our community of the culture of poverty, and having people to understand a lot based on Dr. Ruby Payne's work, and looking at what it truly means for students that are poor, and to understand what it means for a student that when they leave school, they may not have a meal again until they come back. And so we've done a lot with trying to bolster our food bank in our community. We know that most of the food bank food is going to households that have students that are age 18 and under. And so as the RESD, we've tried to do a lot with working with that, being a pace setter and a leader. I make sure our administrative team is there at all of those events, helping to coordinate the word and to be able to spread emails even when we find out of people in need. Working with our schools to be able to have things such as a place for coat room for if a kid doesn't have a coat. We've tried to do a lot of those type of things, and I've been a part of that team, our Shiawassee Hope Foundation, to be able to build those relationships and be able to provide for these are our kids, and when they don't have, the family doesn't have the resources to be able to make sure that they are clothed and fed and basic necessities. A bed, many times we have people just ask for a bed, and is there anybody in the community that can provide it? So we try and put the word out and get that. So that's an initiative that I've been a part of that I'm very proud of. So between that and our early childhood program of really trying to make sure every kid gets a preschool education, and that HOPE program, I think those are two things I've been a part of that have been important.
The next question is on political awareness. So what do you feel the superintendent's role is in influencing county and state political processes impacting K through 12 education? How have you been involved in these processes?
So one of the main duties while I worked at the Michigan Department of Education, I was the legislative liaison for the department. So I've had the opportunity to build strong relationships with people that are in government currently in the governor's office. I'm strong relationships with the governor's education policy advisors, strong relationships with legislative staff of all four of the education committees, the two for education policy and the two subcommittees on education appropriations. And I participate actively with our Superintendent's Association. I often monthly attend our legislative committee meetings where we set essentially the direction of the association of what we're going to advocate for, support, or against. Worked very closely with Brad Bilodeau, who's a lobbyist for that group. And it's very important for the district. There are so many things that are, as a district, that's important for us to advocate for that are affecting the district right as we speak. There are things such as financial management, program that is looking if a student is under, a 7% fund balance, there's going to be a lot of oversight, additional oversight that the district will have to do. And as Dearborn sits here with about a 5% fund balance, that the district would be affected. Looking at teacher evaluation, it's a big thing right now. And as the state now in legislation has put that student achievement has to be a part of a teacher's evaluation and what that looks like, trying to figure out the student growth measure, it's not even remotely right. It's not, the metric's not there. Yet, we're tasked as a district of putting that in and evaluating our teachers on those. So, being at the table and advocating for what that should look like, what are the metrics that should be used for that, I think are very important. And funding. I mean, funding's a key thing as you look at Dearborn, in the past, again, a hold harmless district, that in the past had the 20J Foundation categorical taken away. And looking at categoricals that do affect the district now, obviously at-risk funds are large. There has been an increase in at-risk funds, but that's going to have certain requirements on it of an MTSS system. I think Dearborn's in a good place as far as the strategic plan and the advanced ed accreditation that really made a requirement of having that MTSS. But what is that going to look like, and how does Dearborn's fit into that to make sure that is able to receive those funds? So from a superintendent standpoint, it's imperative that you are knowledgeable on it and also advocate for the district needs when possible. So, one of the things that Dearborn is going to face is a district, that is not at the base foundation is, I think we're going to continue to see the 2X formula. And obviously Dearborn under the 2X formula in this last without best practices received a $25 increase essentially after it was said and done in foundation. And I think that, we're going to continue to try and ask for additional funds because we do not get enough for the real cost of what it is for the cost of educating a student. But also, I think we're going to have to really make sure that we advocate for certain categoricals. So, for instance, right now there's money in there for dual enrollment. Every student is right now in a categorical getting $60 essentially for a dual enrollment. And so that's big for this district that has almost 50% of its students in dual enrollment. When you look at, there's $10 million in the budget for CTE early college programs. How can Dearborn take advantage of that? And what does that look like? Those are some of the things that I've been a part of the advocating for with the legislator and executive office staff. And so I've been highly involved in that level. And I think as the superintendent of Dearborn, I would continue to stay involved in that to make sure that Dearborn's children and the school district's getting every resource and opportunity that we can.
Thank you. Why don't you take a drink?
Thank you.
Was that pause for him or for you?
What is your view of the testing/assessment programs being required of all school districts by the Michigan Department of Education? Do you believe these programs help to improve academic achievement, or do they slow instructional process? What changes, if any, do you feel need to be made?
There is no doubt there's a certain level, of testing that has to happen, but I think it's gone way overboard. The recent, legislative decisions to have one test last year, then a new test this year, and it was a piloted test that, many sections, especially in the ELA sections, took a lot longer than, people expected. And the hard part with the online component is that a lot of people didn't realize is now you're taking the technology away for students to be able and teachers for teaching and learning. So I really think that it has to be looked at and it has to be scaled back. And I think it needs to be scaled back from more of that, state level large test to looking more at testing to make sure that students are growing. And really, Dearborn, for instance, is using NWEA and the MAT test to be able to look at look at student growth. And they're a smaller test that are able to do in a smaller time, and they're done 3 times a year to be able to look at a student growing versus a test that's 1 time a year that nobody's exactly sure what's on it. And from year to year, it changes from what's on it. And that's somewhat been a traditional thing with the MEP and the MME. So I am excited about, I think, where, SAT is heading right now. One of the things I love about where SAT is heading is that it gives students the opportunity to log on to Khan Academy online and be able to take small practice tests and be able to get a diagnostic of where they are. I think that, they're going to do that at the 8, 9, and 10, 10th grade levels, and then the 11th grade, the SAT. And then I'm really interested in higher ed. SAT is a product of AccuPlacer right now. Henry Ford College uses Compass, which is an ACT product. But I think, that's a neat conversation that could happen to look at. But I think all that needs to scale back and really gives teachers the opportunity to work in their classroom and use more formative assessment, and maybe use some common assessments that are created around the district, or maybe even regionally around Wayne County that Wayne Risa could help with. But something that can get a quick diagnostic of a student, that can give instant feedback to a teacher, so that we can watch students grow is really the way we need to go. And Dearborn's placed well with what they're doing with STAR testing and DRA and looking at literacy, in the elementary level, and then NWEA. And I think maybe as this SAT continues to evolve, I think there's some neat things for student options there. That has to happen. And obviously there's a student growth measurement within teacher evaluation that has to be worked in and figured in this. So I think they just need to slow down, take their time, scale some of it back, give teachers the opportunity again to teach students and teaching and learning, and then find the right level, with teacher and staff and union input, and what that looks like, and parents and children, of what is the right amount, what can we do to ensure. Nobody wants to say that we don't need to know if a kid learns. We all want to make sure and have diagnostic tools to make sure that students learn and grow, or are getting a year or more worth of education a year. But there needs to be a stop, put something in place, and the legislation that is currently out there right now is looking at NWEA as one of those things. So I think Dearborn's well placed as one of those things the legislature is looking at. So I'm hopeful that it heads that way.
This next question is two parts. What impact do you feel the Michigan Department of Education designation of focus and priority schools is having on Michigan school districts in general? And number two, how are current regulations regarding dual enrollment programs impacting students and districts?
So first, the metrics for the way in which priority and focus schools are designated are flawed, quite frankly, okay? And I'm a part of the family, okay? I was there. But, I think that, when you look and you say that Edsel Ford, for instance, to say that was a bottom 5% high school in the state is ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. And I think that that obviously has to be looked at. There are ways in which that psychometricians make those things, and then it goes to the U.S. Department of Ed and comes back. And so I think, fortunately, in the last ESEA waiver the state has written, there's been a hold now. There will be 3 years. There's a 3-year moratorium on placing any more schools as focus or priority schools, giving districts the chance to be able to catch up, build their plans, not change and have somebody else come in and tell them they have to change it. And so, I think, the beautiful thing right now for Dearborn is that we're off the priority school list. Looking at the focus school list and knowing that, there are quite a few schools that are in that bottom 30%. I really, personally don't care about that metric, but I will say, that being said, we still got a lot of room to improve. And, we need to work at that and work at having process in place to have a laser-like focus to increase student achievement, and do it with the expertise of great teachers in front of students. Because in the end, there are no silver bullets. The best thing that we can invest in is the teacher that's in the classroom that has relationships, content knowledge, and improved instructional practice in front of children. And I think that's the key thing that we have to do in looking at the focus school. And one of the things that I've done a lot in my county of working as a multi-tiered system of support program. Some people call it a responsive intervention, RTI. And we have a very similar philosophy curriculum-wise to what Dearborn has. We do a lot with balanced literacy. I think the Daily 5 and the cafe model that's been implemented here, I think is very strong in that balanced literacy and creating interventions for students, as well as using everyday math is something that most of the districts in our county use. So I understand how that works and the interventions that can be put, as well as positive behavior supports and a robust data system that record what that looks like. I know that your district's doing a lot right now, especially with positive behavior and bullying. And so having a robust system in place of data that can track that and what that looks like. So putting positive behavior, literacy and math supports, and then now moving on hopefully to science and social studies. That's the way to do it, but the way to do it is not with sit and get PD, but to have teachers to be able to have help and teacher-led instructional coaching and to improve that practice in those focus schools is the way that we bring those kids up. But in an MTSS system, it's about all kids too. So that doesn't mean that you just say, okay, the kids at the top, and this is a little bit of the flaw of the metric, we're going to raise the bottom to lower the top. And so we need to make sure we're also challenging those kids and having opportunities. So making sure that we have project-based and opportunities for things such as gifted and talented programs, but dual enrollment. So going into that dual enrollment, I think dual enrollment is an important aspect for many kids and not just our high-flying kids. I've had some great experiences of working with Mont Middle College in Flint that's been in existence for 25 years, and it's a different, middle college concept's different than early college concept, and that's a program that takes at-risk youth, many that would be, for instance, in an alternative education setting, kids that many people have said, okay, well, those kids are not college material, and working with them and getting them excited in different areas and getting them towards working towards a technical certificate or an associate's degree. So I think a part of a robust multi-tiered system of support is having those options for all kids to be able to do that. And I think the dual enrollment in early college thing's exploding. We had originally 6 when Governor Granholm instituted them originally that were all healthcare related. And then now we're pushing 112 as of this summer that have started across the state of Michigan. Many are not as robust as others, as such as the great relationship that Dearborn has with Henry Ford College, obviously, as you are all board members of both. But having those opportunities and kids to be able to experience, again, that transition without, many kids sometimes they get onto the college campus, they didn't even know they had to take a placement test, and here they are having 5 classes, and they don't know how to time manage, they don't know how the study skills work, all those soft skill kind of things. The dual enrollment world helps us transition those kids from that high school to that college environment a little bit slower, and I think we can do 2 things: eradicate remediation, and we can have many more kids that are successful at getting a technical certificate or degree to enter the workforce.
Thank you.
All right, it's my turn. We're going to be talking about leadership attributes. Please describe the strategic planning process you are most comfortable with using and share any evidence you have that the process has been successful.
Okay. So, I think when you look at strategic planning, I think it's important that putting as many resources directly into the classroom for instruction is a key priority. It's the number one thing that we're trying to do. And likewise, when you have to make cuts, keeping those far away from the classroom is a hard thing, but important as well. And so I think that having a strategic plan is very important. In the folder that I have, I can show you early in my career, I had the opportunity right away to be a part of our strategic planning process when I was in Lapeer. And we really tried to do and bring all community stakeholders to the table and talk about what is it that we want to have the district look like in 5 years. Celebrate our successes, celebrate all those things we've done well, but what is it that we want for our children and our district to look like 5 years from now? So that includes, so we've done a lot of focus sessions. I'm a big favorite of bringing in a professional to be able to come in and help to create that strategic plan and be a facilitator, and to have input from all of the different constituencies within the district, including students. Student voice and parent voice is a key component to have when you're building that strategic plan. And it's important because that is what is really going to drive, what you use your limited resources for. The reality is unfortunately, there's never going to be enough money. Okay? It's a reality. And so we have to decide very, very strategically of how we're going to prioritize our limited resources. Obviously, we have restricted funds that are used for certain things and that we have to use those for. But for those discretionary funds, we have very tough choices on how we do that. Human resources and capital resources are key things that are involved in that. I know that your staff and your support staff and your professional unionized staff have done a great job and made great sacrifices to be able to make sure the district's on stable financial footing. And the community has come forth and passed a $72 million bond that your SMART bond that you're deep in the process now of going through. So having that a part of that strategic plan and looking at, okay, these things that we put into it 5 years down the road, how does that impact us? What do we look like? How do we expect our community to change? What are the things that we want our students and keeps our families here in Dearborn? What makes those students come back, and what are we going to try and offer? So, you've done a lot with dual enrollment and those things that I think, have made you a district of choices. You're not a district of choice, for school of choice, but you are a district of choices for the kids here, and that's awesome. The kids have many opportunities. And talking to the students earlier, that was one of the things that came out loud and clear. Of the one thing they liked the best about Dearborn is the opportunities they have. And that's key, but there are limited resources to keep those things going. And a key thing in that strategic plan is looking at what are some ways in which maybe we can look at alternative revenue sources. Are there ways, for instance, to partner with other school districts, local government? We do a lot of that at the ISD. We provide services to other school districts in other counties. We do IT services for 5 other school districts that are not even in our county school system. We provide internet and IT services to the local court system and the police department. We try and seek out all those different things that we can do and things that others can help us with to maybe be more efficient. And so in that strategic plan, we bring all those community stakeholders together to figure out what are some ways that we can do that. So it's important to do that, and those community partnerships and finding ways to partner with non-instructional services. Be clear, not privatization, and it's not, in my opinion, the way to go. I believe in having strong members of your school human resource team that are members and employees of the district. And so I think, as being that district that is growing and not a school of choice, you're in a unique opportunity to partner with, in a non-threatening way, to some of the other districts in the area. And I think in a strategic plan, you could look at some ways to maybe look at increasing some revenues through that.
If I may jump in just for a minute, you have to move just a little bit faster with going a little bit behind.
All right, you ready? Let's go. What are some examples of how you have used data and research to make important decisions in your current position?
So I talked a little bit about our early college and dual enrollment data, but we have a very robust data system in Shiawassee County. We use a program called Illuminate DNA. And so that's what we use for the academic side. We also use data from the financial side. We use a program, Unitrex, which the city of Dearborn also uses here. And we try and analyze our student achievement data and really look on academic return on investment with that. And our data system for Illuminate is very robust, and we're able to put state data, local data, teacher individual assessment data into that. That's been real powerful for us to build. And so our teachers are actually able, right at their desk station, to be able to look at a student and be able to have all of their assessment data right in front of them. I'm excited. Wayne Risa is actually leaving Class A and has adopted Illuminate DNA. We were the first in the state to help them to build that and to bring that into the state of Michigan. So, we've created our multi-tiered system of support using that. We've created a very robust, looking at high school dropout. We've created an early warning system with that, where we take a look at attendance, behavior, and course completion. We're able to have every student and take a look at that. So when we see students that are falling, at risk of dropping out, our administrators, our graduation coaches are able to work with that and have very, very specific things that keep up to date on a daily basis of what that looks like. And so we've had been able to maintain, with increasing poverty and increasing social issues, we've been able to maintain that high graduation rate. In fact, we've been able to inch it up a little bit in finding those students that are at risk using that data system. And a part of our MTSS now of looking at those interventions with behavior and looking at literacy and math, we've been able to start creeping up our scores, especially in science. We've been able to take a look at that from a data standpoint. We've been able to increase scores, but the best thing is our teachers have been trained in it. It's a teacher resource right there that they have strong, reliable data on every student for them to be able to use to improve instruction.
Okay, thank you. Given that both the Dearborn Public Schools and Henry Ford College share a common Board of Education, what unique challenges and/or opportunities do you believe are created by this relationship? And how do you see the two institutions collaborating on behalf of the students and community?
So again, I've talked a lot about the relationships that I've had the opportunity to build with higher ed. I have a lot of experience with higher ed at MDE. I worked with all 32 teacher prep institutions. that, in the higher education realm, as well as in my current role, if it's 3 strong partnerships with 3 higher ed institutions that we've been able to build for our higher ed programs. But not only that, but to be able to look at opportunities for students, even in middle school, and have opportunities to have, the GATE program at Michigan State, for instance. So I think those kind of opportunities that kids have with Henry Ford College are key. And so, the idea that a student can transition to Henry Ford either just as a student within district at a very affordable rate, or the dual enrollment and early college programs here are unbelievable. And I think, it's unmatched. I think it's so unique that, as a board of both institutions, that you have the ability to be able to see those connections and the partnership. And I know, the president of Henry Ford College has been a great advocate of working with those programs. For example, to be able to take the PLAN test, which was an ACT test, as a tool for admission into the early college program. Some community colleges wouldn't do that. They would say, nope, you have to take it different. You have to take the AccuPlacer, you have to take the Compass. And so being able to have those conversations for the same group of kids, and to be able to say, students, this can be a seamless transition. Through that, we can eradicate remediation. How great is it that we can say that our kids could be able to not have to go in taking 0-level courses that essentially count for no credit? And having that partnership in between the two, and talking about assessment and placement and those kind of things before the students put in there, I think are wonderful opportunities. And I think, also looking at efficiencies with facilities and some of those kind of things are some other things to be able to look at. Career and technical education is a huge one. Henry Ford College has some great CTE programming and some resources available to them that the K-12 district doesn't. And so as you look at, for instance, in the governor's budget right now of that $10 million for CTE early colleges, how can we build all of those CTE programs utilizing the resources of the district and Henry Ford? Because the community colleges right now are actually getting a little bit more resources in the realm of CTE than our K-12 districts are. So having those conversations about how we can utilize resources for both groups, I think, is a key partnership that really, really needs to be talked about even more.
What are the key practices needed to establish and maintain a good working relationship with the board, parents, and members of the local business community?
Can you repeat that one more time, please?
What are the key practices needed to establish and maintain a good working relationship with the board, parents, and members of the local business community?
Number one, I think, is constant communication. You have to have an excellent communication plan, both as the superintendent and for the district, with the board. I think as superintendent, having a clear line of communication that, quite honestly, at times would probably tend to over-communicate with the board on those things. And the community, keeping them up to date on what's going on. What are, again, the successes that we're having, but what are the challenges and ways that we're trying to address that? I also think that being visible in the community is a big thing. One of the things that, that Lord, really attracts me to this job is that I want to get back and be in districts, in events, in the arts, athletics, academic events, and be around kids and families and community, and be able to talk about those things and listen and understand their concerns or the great things that are happening, and be able to tell the board about, those things that I'm hearing. So I think, that line of communication is so important. And I also think, when being visible is also being a part of many of those clubs, service clubs and other things within the community. Going out and talking to them and letting them know how important they are. I mean, at your last board meeting, you had the chance to see how many, scholarships are being put out by the community. You had, thousands of dollars that, these people are putting out and giving opportunities for kids. For college, you need to let them know how much you appreciate that, but also be able to foster when there's opportunities to bring more of that into the district. So I think, having those type of relationships that are built is big. As a superintendent, the number one thing you have to be able to do is build relationships. If you can't build relationships, you're going to be in trouble. And it's one thing that I think is one of my biggest strengths that I would bring to Dearborn, and would love the opportunity to partner with the board to take those relationships and build even more of them.
And this is my last question. What is the most important ethic for a public school superintendent? This is a little long. How would you apply your most important ethic if you found yourself in a situation between doing what is best for an individual yet making sure that the value of public accountability and conforming to community standards.
So I think, the number one thing is trustworthy. You have to be trustworthy, and you have to be transparent. Those are two key components right there as a superintendent that you have to do. This is you as a board are keepers of the public school. And it's the public's ability to be able to see and understand and not have anything hidden from them. And I think, being very open and honest and being transparent with those things, I think, as I go through and just look at the website of the district and how many of those things are so transparent compared to a lot of other districts that are not, quite frankly. And I think that, as a person, I value doing the right thing that might not be the best thing for me. I had a situation at MDE where I had a supervisor that essentially was trying to hire a friend and had a situation where I was made aware of it my first week in the role as the assistant director of an office. And I had to go to the human resource office and say, this is happening and this isn't right. Yet I also had to interview with that person for the job that I didn't get. But it was the right thing to do. It was the right thing to say, we have processes here. And that was, in the interview committee actually had recommended 2 other people besides that person. And the director overruled them and tried to put that person up front. And so I had a very tough decision to make. It quite frankly costed me a promotion at the department. But at the same point, I wasn't going to sit and have somebody do that when, first of all, there were 2 much more qualified applicants, but also didn't value the work of the committee that had taken the time to, pick that person. So, I feel that, that ethics, and being trustworthy, are key components. I'm an Eagle Scout, and I try and still live by that code today. So
So we've got about 11 more questions and about 20 minutes to.
So the next series of questions are on instruction and curriculum. So would you please give us examples of educational change or reform that you have initiated that improves success for all students?
And I've talked a lot about it already, the multi-tier system of support that we put in place to raise student achievement and using data-driven instructional strategies to be able to improve student achievement is a key thing, and building that MTSS system has been an important thing, and we're not where we want to be yet, but we think we're going to get there by doing that. And again, taking a look at the post-secondary opportunities program that we've set in place for our students, and that's about all kids, and that's including students with special needs. One of the things we're trying right now to do is take a look at, as an ISD, we have students in our transition program, 18 to 25. We are looking at dual enrollment opportunities for those students as well. It very well may not be degree or certificate seeking, but it may, a part of their transition program, put them in place to be able to have the opportunity for employment and be able to be a successful, productive citizen. So taking that MTSS, the dual enrollment early college program for all kids, those are the things I've led in my ISD that I think are key curriculum and instruction components that work directly with teaching and learning that improve student achievement.
So maybe you can buzz through the rest of these questions too, because they might also have been touched upon. Next one is, please describe your experience with providing quality educational programs for students at all achievement levels. What role should small learning communities play, if any?
So, again, having the opportunity for all kids can achieve, and when we say all, we mean all. So that doesn't mean, that we have some programs, we just have, gifted programs, and then we have, this program where we have that, we don't fund for, students with special needs. I'll tell you point blank that I am a big believer in inclusive environments for special needs students. And I believe but at the same point, making sure we provide the resources that the teachers need to be able to support those students, the training, training on differentiated instruction and those instructional strategies to make that. I think smaller class size absolutely, helps that. And obviously, the more attention that a teacher can give to fewer students, the better we are. That's hard, obviously with the financial constraints we have, but we've got to try and do the best that we can with that. And the small learning community, that's what I love about an MTSS system, is having the ability to break kids up and to find ways to take through interventions and give all kids core tier 1 supports. So how can we take kids and get them where they're at? And it may take an entire school community. I mean, when we've been in buildings working on literacy, we've been using cooks, we've been using parent volunteers, we're using everybody that we can that's in that school community to help kids read and to get them back on grade level. So creating those type of programs, for all students. And again, I've talked about our interventions and things for even our higher end students to keep them, active and achieved, and having alternative ed programs such as the magnet school that's here, I think is an important thing that those kids, obviously in the program that's put in place with the low numbers has shown great results. So I think, again, having all those choices and ways in which we can intervene are important.
Thank you. What is your view on the role and importance of student personal portfolios and the role that individual educational plans should play as part of the overall system of curriculum, instruction, and assessment?
When we talk about, testing, I think, portfolios are a great way, an alternative measure on which we can look at student proficiency. And our students, in fact, have they, learned the competencies that we expect. Some kids don't test well. So having those portfolios and multiple measures and multiple ways in which students can show that they've mastered learning, I think is a really important thing in that. And also with that is obviously not only, IEPs for students that are special needs or 504 plans for students that, need learning supports. Also just individual learning plans, ILPs for students that are doing some unique things such as maybe internships and other opportunities outside the traditional school environment. So obviously making sure that a student, based on IDEA legislation and the student's IEP, making sure they're getting all the supports and services that they need to achieve are important, and making sure those are followed are a key thing. And again, in that inclusive environment and making sure that the teacher has the training and supports to be able to do that are key things.
How would you go about evaluating the effectiveness of the curriculum, teaching methods, and assessments used in our district?
So I've had a lot of experience with that with my time at MDE as the manager of curriculum instruction. I've done a lot with the survey of enacted curriculum and taking a look at doing somewhat and going into schools and doing curriculum audits, taking a look at, are those things that are supposed to be taught and are on paper to be taught, are they actually being taught? That's a key thing to look at, as well as, we're looking at teacher evaluation. I'm very aware that, this district has adopted the Danielson framework for teaching. And so I'm very familiar with that. I've had training in that. And I know that the district and teams of staff are working at looking at, that implementation and the metrics that are involved in that. So taking a look at, those metrics of what's being taught, taking a look at the progress monitor testing such as NWEA and looking at those screeners. Or those diagnostic tools as well are important aspects to see if we're growth, and having a robust data system that measures that is key. If you don't, you can be data rich but analyzation poor, and it's key to be able to have not only the data but the ability to analyze it to directly change instruction and provide intervention when kids need those. Those are key aspects.
Thank you.
My turn. My questions are related to finances and operations. The first one, describe your experience with budget development and financial management.
Okay, I've done a lot with this from my time in my current role. I currently, am in charge of all of our general education funds, which are all of our CTE, all of our instructional strategy team, all of our content area experts. I manage that as well as all of our grants. We have been fortunate enough to write for almost $2 million in grants over the last 2 years, and I also manage those as well on behalf of our Shiawassee and MAISA, our Intermediate School Administrators Association. So a lot of that I do now, keep up to date on that, analyze that often, and help build that. And we really kind of take a zero-based budget approach to it. We really have to sit down with our board, our superintendent. We try and defend everything we're doing and showing, on the academic return of investment of how that's working for us. So I've had a lot of experience with that in my time at MDE. As a legislative director, one of the key things I did at the beginning of the year is I had to actually help, get the idea of what our budget would look like, together. And MD has about a $300 million budget. And so building that and taking a look at what are those things that we're doing now, what grants are we losing, what federal funds are coming in, what's going out, as well as what are other things that we're trying to prioritize with the legislature and the governor, because the first crack with the budget goes to the governor and it goes in the executive plan. So I would actually sit down with each of our office directors and come up with and look at, what they had. And Governor Snyder actually, different than Governor Granholm, she kind of let us go through of what we did last year and kind of, make suggestions. But Governor Snyder, we actually had to go in for 2.5 hours and defend everything we did. And so building that and talking about all the aspects of that budget and why it's important, data metrics to show that, and if we didn't have data metrics, we had to create a tool that did that was important. So having those opportunities to be deeply involved in the budget process, both at the state and the ISD level, have been very good opportunities for me.
In tough financial times, how do you set priorities when there are competing interests, such as the need to implement programs for struggling students and also keep programs for gifted students?
Again, talked a little bit earlier. I think the strategic planning process is a huge part of that, about what do we believe? What are our core values as a community, as a district, and how are we going to go about making sure we have the resources to do that? And I think, it's a challenge. It's a huge challenge, but, we're a little bit, again, in that business of impossible. And so, having the support of the staff and to be able to implement those things with, limited resources, but great people. So human resources are a key aspect in that. The teacher that's in front of kids makes those things happen. And so keeping all of the funds directly in the instructional process is the most important thing we can do. And then we got to try and do the best we can with, some of those non-instructional things. And again, are there ways that we can look for efficiencies and partnerships, not always looking at cutting, but are there some ways we can advocate for more funds in Lansing, and ways that we can try and partner with other entities to try and actually maybe find a way to increase some revenue.
Lastly, describe the extent of your experience in managing facilities and district operations.
Had a lot of experiences both in Lapeer and St. Joe as the supervisor of athletics. I had the opportunity to work a lot with building improvements and ways in which that we could find limited resources to maybe make some classroom space and some other things more functional for things such as project-based learning and those things. And when I was in St. Joe, I had the opportunity to be a part of a team. We had of our $17 million school bond project, and so had the chance to be deeply involved with that. Worked with the construction management team, worked with the architect, had the opportunity to work through that process all the way, talk about change orders. A lot of those things that you're going through right now with the SMART bond and building, and you're getting towards the end of that. I have a lot of experience of looking at that, including in the strategic planning process of what are our capital needs as far as buildings and buses, and how are ways that we budget and plan for those things over the next 5 to 10 years are key things that I've had great experience in.
Thank you.
I'm going to be discussing with you or asking you questions related to staff and personnel. How would you hold individual school sites and central office staff accountable for results?
First of all, you have great people here in Dearborn. Everybody I've talked to, one thing they say is that, Brian has had a great team to work with him and to be able to make sure that, the district is doing what it needs to do to make sure all kids achieve. And one of the things that I'm big on is that having clear expectations on exactly communicated, verbally and in writing, a part of, including in that strategic planning process, having our administrative teams be a part of that. But at the same point, not to micromanage. We have great people that have great expertise in the areas that they work in, and we need to give them the opportunity to lead, but yet hold them accountable through project management, taking a look at what are our goals, what are our timelines, how are we going to try and make those things happen. And so I've worked a lot with project management, talking to them if there's problems with things not being on track, how do we try and improve and make those things, back on track collectively as a team.
Thank you. Please share your experience in working with employee groups, unions at all levels. Tell us how your working relationships have produced positive results for students.
Had great experience on both sides of the table. One as a part of working as a member of our education association when I was in St. Joe. I was the co-chair of our insurance team and worked really hard at trying to make sure that You know, our membership had the opportunity to, you know, be successful and have the resources that they need. At the state level, I had the opportunity to work a lot in human resources and with the Office of the State Employer on working on issues with contract issues with employees, grievances, those kind of issues. And currently in my current role, actually this summer, I've been asked to be a part of the negotiation team for one of our local districts and sit on behalf of working with the superintendent to make sure that, you know, the board has set, you know, some resources, that they have some serious budget issues. And so he wants some non-biased person to come in. So I'm going to have the opportunity to come and be a part of that and work with the superintendent and the administrative team and work with labor and really work out, you know, an opportunity of what can we do that's best for kids, but yet still keeps people in you know, the best financial shape that we can keep our employees in, because they're our most important resource and we got to treat them the very best we can, but yet live within our financial means.
What is your philosophy regarding effective professional development for teachers and principals, and what role should professional learning communities play, if any?
I think that PLCs are a huge part. I think that, you know, one of the best things we can do is learn from each other. So many times we try and go out and look for that silver bullet or the big presenter, and more, I'm more, you know, becoming less on the sit and get type of professional development. We sit in a room for 3 hours, we hear a speaker who's done great things and never talk about it again. I think one of the key things that we can look at is finding ways to do instructional coaching and look at getting people, experts that are in the field, possibly even people that are within the building that are expert master teachers, and working with staff. That's something we're doing at Shiawassee now. We have a Teachers Learning with Teachers, where we actually, without administrators there, we actually have other teachers that are observing teachers and giving feedback based on rubrics that have been created, you know, jointly with staff and administrative teams. So we've tried hard to implement that instructional coaching, working on improving Tier 1 instructional practice with our folks, and utilizing those dollars that we have with the best bang for our dollar, because the other hard part of that is taking teachers out of the classroom. It's one of the key problems that we might have with increasing student achievement. We know that the best thing we can do is have that teacher in front of them, so the less days we can have them out, the better off we are. But getting true instructional coaching and instructional practice improvements on an ongoing and thoughtful basis, I think is the way to do PD versus the traditional sit and get type things that we've done in the past.
In your current position, how much time do you spend in schools, in the classroom, and in the community? And what value has it been to you?
I spend a lot of time. I get the opportunity to see kids. First of all, I get student voice. And I get an idea of what they like, what are struggles that they're having. And I get the opportunity to see teaching and learning happening, and as we've implemented new programs such as Project Lead the Way and project-based learning, to be able to see how the kids have enjoyed teaching. Had the chance to see, you know, a 3D printer and how the kids have taken innovation and entrepreneurship and started their own businesses. It's a key important thing of what I do in my role, because as a service agency, we're there to help teachers to teach and for students to learn. And so I get the opportunity to get out there, as well as our community knows that when I'm out there looking for resources, that I know what's going on. I'm not somebody that just sits in an office, and when I'm going to say, hey, if you have any grant opportunities or we're looking for that, they know that I have a good beat on what, you know, we need in our schools and what our teachers are trying to do. You know, we've done a lot with robotics. You know, we've started 6 new robotics teams this last year. To be able to go out and see them and have the kids come into our board and do presentations on what that looks like. We had one, you know, go to Worlds. And, you know, and so that's important when I'm going to our community foundation and asking for $500 for them to be able to go on a trip. They know that I'm in those schools, and they have the opportunity to say, you know, that I'm not just somebody that sits in an office and doesn't know the pulse of the districts. And so, you know, I think that's important, and I'm out there a lot. I try and get out in the community to activities and athletics and arts and academic events as much as I possibly can.
Thank you.
Back to me. I guess I didn't do that. We want to take a couple of minutes now to allow you to ask us any questions that you might have. Just be gentle.
A key thing that I'm interested in, obviously celebrating the success that this district has and the great opportunities that kids have. What's something that maybe each of you are looking to see the next superintendent to try and work on to improve and even help take the district make that next step.
Go ahead.
I really like the idea of having students well prepared for college so that we don't have to do remediation at the college. It's very expensive. And so when you comment on that, that's important to me.
Go to somebody else first.
Anybody else want to volunteer? You're going to put me in the hot seat as always.
Go for it.
You know, it's a tough question because we have such a diverse student body with, you know, almost 20,000 students. There's a lot of diversity in there, not just in ethnicity, socioeconomic status, learning abilities, interests, you know, and so there's so many areas that I want to focus on that is impossible to focus on all at one time. But I think that the most important thing to me is that we get as much choice for our students. And by choice, I don't just mean, you know, you can go this way or this way or this way. We need to help students learn to develop where they want to go, to understand where they want to go. I've seen too many students graduate high school and have no idea what they want to do when they go to college. And yet we have some students in here that by 10th, 11th grade, they already know what they want to do in 10 years, and half of them are halfway there already. You know, I want to see that be brought to all students, to give them those opportunities to explore while it's still okay to make mistakes. You know, because once they leave us, those mistakes count. And I want them to have the opportunity to make those mistakes or learn those things before they get out into the real world. Go ahead.
So that triggered me. I knew it. Because along those same lines, something that I've always been concerned about, besides differentiated instruction in the classroom, because every student doesn't learn the same way, and we need to be able to reach these students, even if they're all capable. They're all sitting in one classroom being taught, generally speaking, in one style or design, and so we're not reaching them all. But I'd also like to make sure that, so that's something we continue to be challenged with, and every district is challenged with that. So making sure that all of our teachers have all the skill sets to recognize the students in their classroom and what they need. But in that same token, then, one of the things that seems to fall by the wayside lately is with our counseling, especially at the high school level, and being able to provide those opportunities for our students to understand what their future can hold. That we don't really do a very good job, and I don't think anybody does, even at the college level anymore, about letting them know what's out there, what's available, and giving them an opportunity to explore that. Having them understand that these are the paths that might be the right one for them, and know what's available. Sure. So that, and our counselors just don't have that kind of time anymore to do that. So somehow we need to bring that into the buildings. If it's not through the school counselors, then some other programs that we need to provide.
Trustee McDonald?
Now you triggered something. Not just counseling on like career goals, but counseling in general, because we do have a diverse population, and a lot of our students have some major
social
serious issues, and as do many students. So I just think that that has, with budget cuts and things like that, that has just gone by the wayside, and that and other wraparound services I think are very important for students to be able to reach their potential.
Anyone else? Next question.
That's all I
Well,
have.
That's okay, because we have some good audience questions, so I don't know where Mike went. I'm not sure how we are on time.
We have
but
7 minutes.
Not
We're
to
going to
worry.
keep going anyway, so.
Okay.
So these are the audience questions.
Okay.
This is from Yasmin Ferris. Our district has a long-term vision. If chosen for the position, how long do you see yourself leading our district?
So, you know, I did not take applying for this job lightly. This is an opportunity that I'm looking for long-term. I have at least a decade before I could retire, and I would love to be here for at least that. This is my end game. This is a destination district. That is not a next step for me. I have decided that I wanted to be a local superintendent, and I wanted to do it in a large district, to be honest. And the opportunities I've had with dual enrollment and early college and my philosophy of just providing options for kids, this fits really well with the district and the unique relationship with Henry Ford College. And I would consider it an honor to, finish my career here, quite frankly.
This next question is from William Ali. Our district is made up of 60% Arab American students. What experience from your past jobs do you have in dealing with the Arab American community?
Not so much, in the job as much as in personal. I've had the opportunity, I have many friends, within the Arab community at Michigan State. And, one of my very, my daughter's very good friends, we talked quite a bit about, his pilgrimage to Mecca and the opportunities that, he takes with the Islamic Center in East Lansing. So, I understand a lot of the culture, and I've had the chance to make many friendships in that. And then obviously in my time at MD of working with Title III and looking at a lot of refugee populations in the Lansing area, and as well had the chance to visit classrooms quite a bit, especially in the Walled Lake area. Have had the chance to look at a lot of English language learner programs with Arab students. And the students that take the ELPA as the screener. And so I've had the chance a lot, more in that personal, opportunity to be able to learn and see the culture from that aspect than, truly in my professional, career.
This question is from Rado Wan. You spoke about raising achievement for our poor students. What will you do for the exceptional students?
So we've had some great programs. We do a great program called the Shiawassee Scholars, where we have every 8th grader that chooses to in our county take the SAT. And we take the top 100 of those kids on that, which we only get about 150, and we put them in a program where they get opportunities that's funded by, we get public donations and a family foundation that supports, and we bring different people in to talk to them about college opportunities. We have them take part in the GATE program at Michigan State University. And we have them spend a week at the University of Michigan, and they meet with professors. They get to stay on campus. They get to do a lot of those kind of things, and they get to get some of those supports with new mats and a lot of gifted and talented programs that we don't necessarily have the resources for, but we help find other resources and other things out there for them to be able to participate. And again, as they get into that a dual enrollment early college opportunity, that is a way for those kids as well from a gifted way to achieve. And also I've done a lot with online learning opportunities for kids in enrichment. I've done a lot with seat time waivers. I was a part of the original group that did that at MDE that started those. So I think having multiple opportunities and multiple ways in which kids can learn, those are things that we work on hard in our county to be able to give to our especially our gifted kids.
Great. We have a few minutes remaining, I think. I haven't been told otherwise. Is there anything else that you haven't covered up to this point that you want to make sure that we know, or any other comments?
I think that Dearborn is an unbelievable community. I've loved the research that I've done and talking to people, and I think that you have the opportunity to do some things here, just with the culture, with the fabulous staff and teachers that you have, and the relationship with Henry Ford College that I think, quite frankly, I really don't know another district like it in the state of Michigan, and I get to see a lot of them. So it's been an honor to be able to come and talk to you and meet and walk through the schools. I've walked through about 10 schools over the last month and came down and drove around in neighborhoods, and I think the neighborhoods are so unique. I grew up in a city environment in the city of Flint, and it's so nice to see how well people take care and take pride in the community and where they live. And I just think it would be an honor to be able to lead this district and to be able to partner with the board and partner with the community to, quite frankly, I think take this school district and have it recognized for what it is, as I believe one of the best districts in the state of Michigan, and I think can be a pace setter for districts across the United States. So I really thank the opportunity. Again, I thank for everybody in the audience for coming. I know it's a night in schools just about out here, so just again really appreciate the opportunity to come talk to you all tonight.
Well, we appreciate your interest in the position of the superintendent of schools. The board is interviewing a total of 4 candidates, and we expect to conduct our second interviews next week, and we'll let you know in a timely fashion when that decision's made.
Okay, thank you, I really appreciate it.